Welcome back up to the Vinyl Attic. The attic full of vinyl, where we talk about great albums. And we're doing this 100 albums list. 100 albums that matter, 100 albums that should be in your collection, 100 albums that are not the obvious ones, but ones you want to look for. You know, sometimes when you're going through the stacks looking for one thing and, oh, I heard this was pretty good, and you grab it and pull it out and it becomes your favorite album. So we're looking for those records to complete your collection. And the album that we're discussing this time, when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, right, this is the greatest album of all time. This is the greatest album ever recorded. Every time I hear it, and then I forget about it for a while, and then I listen to it again, and I'm like, oh, this is the greatest album of all time. This is the greatest album ever recorded. We're talking about Richard and Linda Thompson's final album, 1982's Shoot Out the Lights. Shoot Out the Lights. It might not be on your top 10 list, but let me tell you why it should be. So Richard Thompson was probably best known for being part of the Fairport Convention with Sandy Denny. My ears followed Sandy Denny because she's on a Led Zeppelin record on Led Zeppelin 4, and that's how I discovered the Fairport Convention. Battle for Evermore. Maybe you know that Led Zeppelin song. So that led me to Fairport Convention, which led me to the great songwriting and guitar playing of Richard Thompson. And then he leaves at the end of the 60s, and the 70s kind of goes solo. While he's a part of this folk music scene, which Fairport Convention is like the hub of, the center of, he meets Linda Pettifor, the singer, and they fall in love and they get married. He records a solo record on his own, but then they do a record together. I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight, and pretty great. It's a pretty great album. The melding of their two voices, the kind of push and pull of these two characters is really strong, and it is a great record. Doesn't sell a lot, but like one of those early 70s records that gets the ear of the critics, especially in Great Britain. They're like, well, this is really good stuff. This is really good stuff. You know, the wider public will discover it many years later, but it just becomes very loved by musos. And they continue to make records, but they have an interesting journey. Richard sort of goes into the world of Sufi Islam, studying, kind of like Cat Stevens did a little bit later, studying Islam, and that starts to infuse his music. They're making records, but they're not selling very well. They're sort of, you know, attempts to blend the domestic life they're living with Sufi ideas about spirituality, and it doesn't really find a big audience. They start working with Jerry Rafferty. Jerry Rafferty and Richard Thompson had worked with Jerry Rafferty on one of Jerry Rafferty's records, and Jerry Rafferty's like, let's make a record, let's make a real record, and so he gets him into the studio. In the process, Linda Thompson, they're now married, is pregnant and is having a hard time singing. But they're going to make this record that's going to be sort of their commercial breakthrough record, and they're recording this record, and then they have a falling out with Jerry Rafferty, and Joe Boyd comes in, and they're like, we're going to make this record. They believe that this is a record that's going to happen. To sort of open the door for the U.S. audience, Richard goes to L.A. And organizes some gigs at McCabe's Guitar Shop in Santa Monica, which I've been to more than once. And has a fling with the woman who books artists for McCabe's Guitar Shop. Comes back. That leads his marriage to sort of crack apart with his pregnant wife. And then they finish recording this album. And then it comes out in 1982. And they have to go do some shows. And they're basically already divorced. So, you know, a lot of people like to talk about Fleetwood Mac's Rumors album with all this tension that was on you can go your own way, all that. It's like this, but it's just two people, and it's super intense. And so when you get into the songs, the passion in the songs, I mean, Don't Renege on Our Love is the opening track, and it's just brutal if you know kind of what was going to happen with those. The Wall of Death, Walking on a Wire, A Man in Need, Did She Jump or Was She Pushed, Shoot Out the Lights. I mean, these songs are really intense when you know the backstory. Linda had a hard time singing. In fact, Richard had to sing some of her songs. And because of the pregnancy and problems she was having that would later become health problems that would prevent her from singing altogether. And there is this just kind of intensity of the record. Also, his guitar playing is incredible. To a classic rock fan, you might think Mark Knopfler, that sort of bit. The band is really hot, and the record really sort of pulls together a lot of intense tensions that married couples might have, especially when one is pregnant and the other one just cheated on you. So you can imagine the intensity of this record. They did some shows, but really couldn't sustain it, so this was their last album. But as was intended, the record kind of broke through. The record started to get more wide appeal, mainstream appeal, going up the charts, getting listeners finally in America, but that was the end of Richard and Linda Thompson as a team. Richard strikes out on his own because he's now sort of established himself as a great songwriter. I saw him in the mid '80s at a club in Atlanta called the Moonshadow Saloon when this record came out, Across a Crowded Room, which is a great record. And Richard is still playing and making music. Linda just put out a record called Proxy Music with the covers a takeoff of the Roxy Music album we discussed a few weeks ago, but cannot sing because she has a condition, a spasmodic condition that doesn't allow her to sing because her vocal cords constrain in a spasmodic way. And so she has other people singing her songs, including their son and including Richard. Richard shows back up for his ex-wife to play on Linda Thompson's new record that just came out last June. It's a really beautiful record, and it's a great way to honor this amazing musician who had this incredible voice that was so everywhere in the early 80s, who can't sing anymore. But I wanted to give a little bit of love for this record because, first of all, a lot of people don't know it. They might know I Want to See the Bright Lights Tonight. That's kind of the most famous Richard and Linda Thompson record. This one is just so cutting. It is so cutting. Just take the barbs on rumors and crack them up a notch. That's what this record is. But it also shows that from great tension can come great art. And this is kind of a theme that we've talked about, is that, some people are just super talented and can write an amazing piece of music on the back of a napkin. But sometimes this intense emotionality that human beings go through produces something that's beautiful. And I always like to think about that when people are in down times, or people are depressed, or it's hard time, or things politically suck, or you lost your job, or there's all these kind of bad things that are thrown our way to make life hard. But sometimes out of that comes something inspired and beautiful that you look back on it and you're like, I'm glad I went through that, because that hell produced that amazing piece of work. And so don't be afraid of the hell, because there may be some good that comes from it. Words of wisdom from somebody who's been through a little bit of hell. Richard and Linda Thompson, they are still with us. They're not performing together, but at least they had a chance to kind of come together on Linda Thompson's new record. And I just love this album so much. I swear to God, I forget about it for like 5 years, and then I pull it out and play it. And I love it that he's here. The cover is great. She's not even in the room. She's just a picture on the wall, right? And he's a blur here. I mean, I think now I read all this drama into this album because I know the backstory. But it's intense. It's intense relationship music. Don't renege on our love. Oh. I think that might have been on a few mixtapes I sent out over the years. Don't be afraid of the pain. The pain can produce something beautiful, so be willing to move through it. Don't let it stop you from being the creative force that you are. All right, that's this record. Next time we're going to talk about another artist that it seems to many is a child of great gifts, but also has gone through a lot of pain and torture in his life, even though he is the quintessential rock star. We're going to talk about Pete Townshend. Pete Townshend, Empty Glass, 1980. Such an important record. Pete Townsend, Empty Glass. That's next time. But for now, these two people matter. Richard, you matter. Linda, God love you, you matter. This record matters. This music matters. You matter. Let's talk about it.